Hi, guys. There's my overseas friends. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Well, I am, as everyone can see, I'm Michelle Bell from ASI, and I oversee ASI's editorial and special events and education. And the purpose of this webinar are global alliances, which is what we're going to talk about today and what the end of the year looks like in the UK and the EU. And certainly for 2025, as the three of us kick off our respective trade shows. So, first up, we have my dear friend Viola Proietti from PSI, and Viola is based in Germany. How's it going, V?
Everything is good. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank
Of
you.
course, of course. And then we have my other pal, Jason Grenham from Sourcing City in the UK. Hi, Jay.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. How you doing? You all right?
Yes, so it's 10 a.m. in Philly, 3 p.m. in the UK, and 4 p.m. in Germany. Yeah?
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
Correct.
yes, yes.
That's it.
And I was thinking earlier, how long will I be able to last before I refer to Jason as Larry the cat? And for those of you who don't know, there's a cat that lives at Downing Street where the Prime Minister lives, and that cat has outlasted 6 prime ministers. So that is Jason in the industry because he abides. Jason will never leave. Jason is Larry the cat. So I lasted a minute, by the way. So there we go.
Thanks. Thanks,
I'm
Michelle. You really don't know what you've done saying that
I'm
so
the gift
early
that
on.
keeps giving, Jay. I'm the gift that keeps giving. Um, so as the three of us were just talking about, so we'll get to our trade shows in a minute because all three of us have shows in the beginning of January, and I really do think that's a great barometer for how the year, certainly the first half of the year is going to shape up. But I'm more curious right now in your respective areas, how is the industry doing? How is the economy doing? So I'll let you guys go first, and then I'll chime in on the special situations here in the U.S. So Jay, how's the UK in Q4? How's the industry?
Yeah, so Q4 as a whole has been pretty flat. And it's been like that really for the last sort of 6 months or so. Interestingly enough, talking to a lot of distributors and suppliers, the start of the year was very good. A lot of people had double-digit growth in the first quarter. Then sort of spring, early summertime, election got called here in the UK, and things started to really slow down and flatten out. Now, it could just be coincidence. I'm not a big believer in coincidence. I believe that a lot of that was down to the elections and not knowing what's going to happen. Obviously, a new government came in here in the UK in the summer, and so the first four months of their tenureship has been rocky to say the least, should we say? So yeah, the start of the year was pretty good for lots of people. The rest of the year has been pretty average. I mean, as you know, we obviously do an end of year annual report of the UK market, which we're starting to put together now, which will be out sort of early part of
I love
next
that
year.
report.
Um,
I love that
Good.
report.
Well,
Move along.
yeah.
There's magic. I love it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we're forecasting that the overall market as a whole will be pretty flat for this year in the UK, which, yeah, compared to the start of the year is disappointing. There's always exceptions. There's certain companies I've spoken to who have had really good years, but I think as a whole, it's been a pretty flat year for most people.
Do you think, Jay, that so your elections happened, holiday season kicked in, did things start to pick up a little bit at the end of the year once people settled down, or it was just too much to kind of surmount?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously with new governments coming in, there was a budget in October, which again wasn't particularly great for business as a whole. Yeah, we've just had sort of new figures come out. Inflation rates went up today to 2.6%, so it's gone up from 2.3 to 2.6%, which was expected. This time of year is always a bad year for inflation with sort of winter coming, fuel prices, and also food prices as well
Sure.
for the holiday season. So, yeah, so the inflation figures come out today. The interest rates have come down a bit since the beginning of the year. The forecasts, they were wondering whether it was going to come down again before Christmas. Almost certainly it won't do. So the economy as a whole, it's a bit of a knife edge at the moment. I think 4 months into a new government, the impact of this budget that came in October hasn't really played out yet. So I think from a business perspective, it's a case of wait and see into the early part of next year to see how that pans out for business generally.
Sure. Sure. I did want to mention if anyone has any questions, just type them into the chat. I will see them and share them with Viola and Jason so they can address them. And as far as, really getting the lay of the land for the EU promo market and the UK promo market, Jason and Viola are as good as it gets. We are lucky enough at ASI to have this strategic alliance with them in PromoAlliance, and I find their help invaluable. And Jason and I were talking before we went live. We have never seen so much interest in each other's markets from our members like we have. And Sourcing City is very much kind of like an ASI setup of a company in the UK. Viola, of course, presides like a queen over the largest promo show in Europe. So,
Thank
Viola,
you.
perhaps you have something happening unexpectedly in your country by the way of an election that was just called suddenly.
Yeah, surprise. That's it. Yeah,
Surprise!
I believe it was the day when Trump was elected that basically the Germans said, that's a funny thing to do. We should think
Hold
about
my
it too.
beer. Hold my beer,
Yeah,
America. I can
exactly.
help you.
Yeah, yeah, that's the point. So
So,
yes, exactly. So it's decided, end of February, new elections
new election.
in
So,
Germany.
Viola, knowing what Jason and I have seen in our countries, because the elections made people very nervous here, and it had for sure an impact on people's spending budgets. Germany is the largest economy in Europe. So, how is the market now for promo? And do you anticipate that things are going to get a little sketchy with this new election?
Well, I have to say, starting in 2024, I believe, well, UK and Europe is not that far away, to be very honest. And I believe that a lot of things work in a very the same way, basically. So at the end of last year, the expectation for 2024 was really high and positive. Also, the beginning of the year started very well. We also had our industry barometer of 23 stating that there would be a sales development of an average of 13%, which would have been a 10% increase in comparison to the pre-COVID year in 2019. So all in all, I believe that the line which we still have is that, yes, we definitely recovered from COVID, and I don't think that we need to talk about that again, but we know that there has been a lot of other crises going on the past months and years also that had an effect on the promo industry in the past year too. So although we know that the industry is very flexible and
It is.
we know how to work out things also when there are political and social challenges, I would say yes, the year went fine, but also the development is rather flat than growing
Yeah.
as predicted at the beginning of the year. And yes, well, the new elections is well, it's not unimportant, I would say. Although I believe that at the moment politics is much more, interested in itself and so much focused on trying to make use of the next weeks in order to have the elections done. We have a stagnation in Germany. This is for sure, and I don't think, and well, what is predicted for next year, it's not going to be much more positive. So GDP in Germany declined by 0.1%, and I believe, and we believe, that this is going to stay for the next year. So yeah, all in all, I would say for next year it's going to be, yeah, hopefully better after the elections. But well, the expectation is not that that there is going to be a boom for the whole industry.
So thank you, V. So here in the U.S., are you guys aware we had an election this year? Uh,
Let me think
so
about it.
I would say that if I was a betting girl, we're at 26 billion, right, for 2024. I think we're gonna come in 1% up or flat. But when you factor in inflation, of course, that's down.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in the U.S., suppliers and distributors, were surprised how sluggish their business was and kept expecting in the second half of the year things to pick up because the election was over, because of the holidays. And it's really been slower than people thought. And I think that there's a lot of malaise in the industry, certainly among buyers with their budgets, because people, they just kept things so tight. They were afraid of the recession that never really materialized. They were afraid of an uncertain economy. There were many markers here in the US that our economy was quite strong and quite good, but inflation was horrible. And to your point, Jay, when you look at things like, food prices and things like that, it made people very unsettled. Of course, the uncertainty, the unsteadiness, the turmoil with the different wars around the world. I think all of it was just a stew of anxiousness for people in the industry. So I am very hopeful for 2025, but I am not the least bit surprised if
Mm.
Nate Kuzma, who's we call him the data guru over here at ASI, who is our senior executive director of data analytics, if he comes to me and says, "Yeah, we're flat or down 1%," I will not be the least bit surprised. Look, it'll take whatever we come in at. If it's over 26 billion, that will be a new record for us because 26 billion in the US is the most we've ever had for promo. So even if it's a small bit of growth, we will have another record year, but it was a tough year, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, what I said, moving on to Q1, I really do look at how the shows perform as a barometer of how at
Hmm.
least the first half is going to be. So the three of us all have our shows in January. Orlando is the 4th to the 6th. PSI in Dusseldorf is the 7th to the 9th. And Sourcing City in Coventry in the UK is the 22nd and 23rd of January. I go to all three, so it's very interesting to compare and contrast. I take that back. I actually won't be in Orlando. I'll be on the way to PSI at that point. Um, I've looked at our numbers for Orlando. We have the things are ticking up. We have, Jay, you said you have lots of new exhibitors. We too have new exhibitors, which is a great sign. But it's really like who shows up, right? Like who actually comes to the event. So predictably, what are you seeing right now? And Viola, I'm going to ask you first because your show is so massive and it really is the first big show in Europe of the year. So what are you seeing?
What we see is that we are just thrilled to welcome everyone back, to be very honest. It's just like, next door. It's like tomorrow the doors are opening. We have 600 international exhibitors, of which I would say around 100 are newly ones, which are always placed in the newcomer area. And yeah, we are very thrilled to welcome everyone back there in our, as we call it for next year, industry wonderland, because there is nothing that can't be, you see. So we sorted out the current needs of the industry and the interests, and again, pick them up in our variety of special show areas, which will be the Textile Village. We will have a refinement show, and also a newly established PSI Academy, where we offer various opportunities for professional education during the 3 days of the show. And well, our membership team will be also on site. So if anyone wants to have some more information on PSI and what the values are, just come pass by and we will take a sip on our smoothies that will be handed out to everyone.
I'm excited.
Yeah, there will be a lot of enough other things during PSI night, which will run the first night of the show. And yes, so we will try to also show the new trends of 2025 on special areas just right next to our own booth. So there is going to be, as I said, an industry wonderland, and the not only the exhibitor numbers are very positive, also the visitor numbers are very positive. So yeah, we're just waiting for you.
Well, and you get people from, is it over 100 different countries come or just under
Well,
100 different countries?
yeah, we have a lot of visitors coming from outside, also Europe. Basically, the shift is like 50-50, like 50 German and 50% international visitors and as well exhibitors. So we really, and as we know, a lot of the US people come over also the past 2 years and also next year. So there is a lot of networking, a lot of possibility of getting to know each other's. It's always mesmerizing mesmerizing how many people come over to
Yeah,
see and meet and greet and source for new trends and products.
I feel like I have had so many Americans reach out to me, and I have a list of the Americans who are going to PSI. It's like an invasion. The Americans are coming. The Americans are coming. And Jason and I were talking because Jay, for your show, you said you have, you and I have been doing this for a long time, Jay. You said I've never seen so much interest from the Americans in the UK business. So and I know a lot of them are coming to your show because I get that list too. So what does
Yeah,
that look like?
100%.
What's the show looking like?
No, the show's looking good. A bit like with PSI, yes, it's a smaller show, but it's important, as we were saying earlier, sort of new suppliers wanting to exhibit, because it's great to see your favourite suppliers there and catch up with people at the start of the year. But I really fundamentally, believe it's important to have those new suppliers there. So we have about 10% of the overall exhibitors are new exhibitors that have never done the show, which is really important. Pre-registrations are at record levels, which is great to see.
Wonderful.
So yeah, I mean it's looking good for January. The momentum since COVID and pandemics, as V said, don't want to talk about that anymore. The momentum has just kept rolling, and the show itself has been a really good show in conjunction with the BPMA. Obviously, who are the main trade association here in the UK. They actually have their awards night slap bang in between the 2 days of Merchandise World. So, it's a great couple of days to actually see new exhibitors, some of your old friends, and obviously a bit of party time as well at the BPMA event as well. So it's important to have that.
That BPMA awards event is the most fun awards event I've ever been to. And I think one year somebody drank champagne out of my high heel. I swear to God. Like somebody had my shoe and drank champagne out. It is quite the party. It is quite the party.
Yeah,
You know
absolutely.
what's interesting? So I had a conversation with somebody the other day. So there's a woman here in the US. Her name is Lisa Bennett, and she's based in Chicago, and she's a promo veteran. And she said to me the funniest phrase. She said, "In America, we're terrified, not terrified, terrified, because nobody knows, what's going to happen with the tariffs." So I had a really interesting conversation with a distributor the other day, and they said, "I really need to know more about doing business in Germany and the UK because what if the tariffs do take place? They very well could be a negotiation tool from incoming President Donald Trump, and certainly with Canada. It could just be a lot of negotiation. But if he does levy higher taxes, does that behoove U.S. distributors to look to other places for their promo aside from China?" So the distributor said to me, "I'm going to start looking at places like Germany." So this is why, you expect to see the largest distributors at shows like PSI and Sourcing City. I expect to see the Geigers, the ASBs, the BDAs, because they have offices there. The Nadels, they own businesses there. What is surprising to me is that it's the next level down of it's the mid-sized distributors that I'm starting to see really focusing on the European and UK market because they want other options. Why is that? Look, their client base is becoming, infinitely more global. So Jay, I wanted to ask you, in all of your years, how has the ramp up been of the Americans asking you for information, and what type of information are they asking for?
Yeah, I mean, PromoAlliance has been going now for over a decade. I've been involved in this industry now for 38 years now, and certainly in the 10, 12 years that we've been running PromoAlliance, 2024 has been by far the biggest year for interactions with US distributors of, as you say, of all sizes, basically. So, and the requirements and requests have been everything from looking for new suppliers, vendors to deal with directly, looking for partnerships with UK companies, just a multitude of different services that obviously there's a requirement for from US distributors, and we're obviously more than happy here at Sourcing City to help that and facilitate those discussions, whether it be with vendors, suppliers directly, or with UK partners. But yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think it's fantastic. It's been a great year to have actually that amount of interaction, and obviously having come over to your show in Chicago in the summer, it was great to obviously meet some of the distributors at that event as well. And yeah, I think it makes a far more global industry and actually makes us understand a bit more of what's required from distributors, you know, in the US and from around the world, not just very insular with what we need here in the UK.
Absolutely. And Viola for PSI, I've been attending PSI for, I cannot believe it, 25 years now. And well, I know the reason that US distributors really find the ones who do go, and now I find it so heartening that not just the biggest companies are going, the trends that they see there, product trends, merchandising trends, design trends are so eye-opening to them. And at the most basic level, it gives them ideas on what sorts of things they want to pitch to their products or to their clients, but also when they're at trade shows, how do they want to merchandise things for their clients? And that's the question I get asked most from Americans. What great suppliers do you know in the EU? Who do you know in the UK that I can trust to do this? And then, of course, there's the partnerships. Distributors are now looking to, they're not big enough to have a footprint physically in the country, but they don't want to lose the business opportunities that their clients are asking for. So I actually think one of the smartest ways to kind of dip your toe in the water is to partner with somebody who's reputable in another country. And that is where you two have been, so helpful to me because, I've got Americans coming to me all the time asking who's somebody I can partner with in France or Germany or the UK. And, I come to you guys constantly, which has been great.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think I believe that's going to continue into next year. And as you say, I think the partnership route is a smart move because certainly with our UK distributors here, they have the relationships, they have the pricing structures in place with suppliers that maybe US distributors wouldn't have if they were trying to deal with those companies direct. So yeah, I think it's certainly a good starting point for any US distributors that need that footprint, as you say, in the UK or in Europe.
I have a question for you guys from somebody who's listening, a Pam Harris. So what she's asking is, let me just level set. In the US, for example, 90% of our suppliers are importing from China. China is still the biggest game in town. Pam is asking, in the EU and the UK, your suppliers, where are they primarily importing their products from? Is it China as well, or is it someplace else?
I can go if you want to first, because I believe also there is the same way. So we have companies who import. Yes, I would not say that the percentage is that high because a lot of products are still produced in Germany or in the EU. So we had last year a lot of distributors in our network asking explicitly for products made in Germany or the EU, and that's basically also an offer a lot of our suppliers offer in the EU. I think in the UK it's the same because I remember we had a made in Britain also in the past years on PSI show. So I would not say that the percentage is that high as in the US when it comes to producing or importing from China.
Viola, are there any other areas? Like you said, I get that a lot of people want to kind of, when things, especially when things are very stressful in the world, people naturally want to look inward and buy from within their own countries. We see that with Made in the US as well. That kind of increased this year, that interest in Made in the USA products. But other than Germany and the EU, are there other places aside from China that people are looking to that you can think of? And Jay, I would ask you the same question.
Well, I know
Yeah, I
that
mean,
there have been, during the pandemics, there has been the development for a lot of importers to redirect their production sites to the eastern part or eastern countries of the EU, like Czech Republic or Poland, which before the pandemics, in some cases also already was a very useful, I would say, country-based product production possibility. So some of the importers came back with their production to the EU, basing that in the eastern countries. Some of them after that got back producing in China, other stayed. So yeah, that's basically the only thing I can think of when it comes to EU production outside the own country. Yeah.
Jay, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Viola says. Obviously, yes, there's a lot of British-made products. A lot of people are focusing on that. We have a group called the Bryman Group, which is just UK and British-made manufacturers. One big area also is India. A lot of products coming in from India. Certainly some of the bags and things like that. Some certain leather goods as well. So yeah, although it's not a huge amount, we're certainly seeing products and supplies from India sort of being involved in the UK market.
Not to forget that
Turkey's
there are
another
also.
place, by the way. Go ahead. I'm sorry, B.
No, sorry, didn't want to interrupt. Not to forget that there are also a lot of, let's say, Turkish. When it comes to textiles, there is a huge Turkish production which is running very, very well, which also exhibits on PSI, by the way. So yeah,
Yeah.
but you're right. India and the Turkish countries are really, or Turkey, sorry, are really on a high level when it comes to textiles. So it also maybe depends on the products that are produced, basically.
I'm fascinated by Turkey as an option for an importing area. So many of our suppliers in the US, I'm starting to hear more and more about Turkey. Number one, they have a huge and young labor pool, kind of like China back in the day. So there's that. They have a lot of money being infused into that country from the government for manufacturing growth. And you're right, Viola. First, it started with textiles, but some of the suppliers in the US are actually going to Turkey to supplement hard good importing, pens, drinkware,
Wow.
deskwear, things like that, which is super interesting. And if you look at the cost, it's more expensive to get something over from China than it is from Turkey. So I'm keeping an eye on that area as something of interest. Here in the US, of course, Mexico has emerged as a real viable option. Vietnam, places like Vietnam, Bangladesh, Jay's right, India. So all of these places, I of course have always espoused. I think in the U.S. we have, a codependency with China that aggravates me to no end because, the smartest business people would never say to have all of your business, 90% of your business with one client. And that is what we're doing. We have everything coming in from China. So it's kind of when it speaks to diversification, I wish it was a little bit more spread out.
Yeah, I remember. I remember in the past when I was in touch with some of the ASI suppliers and also distributors. The question was always, okay, how can we get the products over from Europe to the US? And in the end, it always ended up that the feedback was like, okay, it's easier for us, talking from the US point of view, to get our products from China than to import them maybe from China to Europe and then get them to the US. So I believe that was up to now always a high level of not being able to cooperate basically with distributors here in Europe. But as you just said, possibly what is coming up in politics might deliver different ways of cooperation, as for example when Brexit came up, because I know that there are, and Jay knows very well that there are some of or a lot of the British people that face the same problems when suddenly they had to, let's say, end their way of working with European companies, and had to find different solutions, which, well, they found in the Netherlands, but basically they found solutions. Yeah.
Sure. What trends do you guys think we'll see in 2025? Industry trends, product trends? Jay?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly here in the UK, it's going to continue with the whole sustainable, renewable sort of eco products. Looking at some of our stats, that as sort of search terms and as products is up by about 11-12% this year. And I can see that continuing next year. It's just the way the market's going here in the UK. Again, talking about the BPMA with what they're doing with their Step Forward pledge, which is all about trying to help companies become more sustainable in their own industries and their own companies, and therefore make the whole industry more sustainable sort of moving forward. I think that's going to be the continuing trend for next year for the UK, without a shadow of a doubt.
I think that's one of the most appealing things about European suppliers to Americans, because your environmental standards are so much higher in Europe, government mandated, that Americans don't even need to, if they're buying from a European supplier, everything that they would be asked about is already taken care of, because your standards, your regulations are so high there, you know. Um, Viola, when you think about your suppliers for PSI, what trends are you seeing both in the market and the products that they have?
Well, I believe that, as Jay said, it's much more than just the product itself. It's the added value. It's let's say the content of the product that will be much more important, because the buyers basically have to find products that are linked to some kind of transparency, some kind of value like sustainability. So it's not only the product itself that trends, but what lies behind the product. How has it been produced? How is it packaged? How is it refined? And so on and so on. What is the standard in product safety? Which basically leaves the whole industry with a lot of new bureaucracy to cope with, to be very honest. But I don't think we can stop at just the level of product, but we really have to think about what lies behind the product and what is, again, the added value I deliver to the end buyer or the end
Sure.
user in the end. Yeah.
I was talking to a few distributors this past week, and on our counselor top 40 list, so some of the largest distributors in the industry. And I found it fascinating. I asked them what their clients are asking them for. And it used to be a few years ago that they wanted to know about DEI, diversity, inclusion. Are you using vendors that are woman owned or one? And one of the distributors said to me, we haven't been asked about that in 2 years, but sustainability and ESG issues, environmental
Mm-hmm.
soundness, social responsibility. The person said that is not dissipating, that is not going away. So when these distributors have global clients, it behooves them to work with European suppliers, again, who've already hit those marks. I mean, Viola and Jason, do you anticipate, because this is not a trend that seems to be slowing and in fact is growing, do you anticipate that are more regulations coming in your respective countries regarding sustainable products? Jay?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the big one that is, it's not on the horizon, but it's looming over the horizon soon, is the digital product passports, which is coming into Europe by 2030. But a lot of people are saying you need to be looking at this now, and this is obviously for anybody in the EU and any UK companies who are going to be exporting to the EU. You will need this DPP, this digital product passport, which basically gives you, or gives the end user, complete visibility of origin of the product, materials it used, the environmental impact, the disposable recommendations. All of this information has to be involved within that product passport. So it's a few years off, and there's going to be, I believe, from what I've been reading, 2027 they're going to be giving more recommendations of exactly what's going to be required. But that's going to be the big one, I think, sort of, not just the UK but Europe wide, basically.
So we have a question from Michael in the US. I feel like a talk show host. We have a question from Michael in the US. The digital passport, does that include promo, or does promo get an exemption because it's a gift? And is it every single product?
Yes. So
Yeah.
generally promo is not excluded, not at all, because it's not a gift. And it makes a difference. At least in Germany, I know it makes a lot of difference whether we're talking about a gift or a promo product. And we definitely don't talk about gifts when it comes to the German part. I don't know, Jay, how it's in the UK. And that's basically for any kind of, because all of these regulations basically point to one point. It's the traceability and the transparency when it comes to production, sustainability, and everything that lies in the production of one product. So it's equivalent whether it's textile or whatever, or whether the usage is for promo, it's a product that is on the market and needs to have this digital product passport and all of the information included.
But Viola, so just follow me on this. If it is promo, is there an argument not to be made? And maybe it's already been made and they didn't buy it, but that promo is a gift. Because if I'm a distributor in Germany and I'm buying promo from Gold Star and giving it to my employees for the holidays, is that not a gift? So would
It
that
is.
not be, so it is exempted or it's not?
It is a gift, but when it comes to the definition of what a gift means in terms of compliance and taxation, we have to be very, very well, we have to pay attention to how we define this. And that's why we basically can't talk about promotional products to be gifts, because then we would really have different taxations and also much more problems. And that's basically in Germany, it is a huge issue it has been a huge issue for years, which I know there is this issue that it's not valid in Belgium, for example. But in Germany, when it comes to taxation, it is an issue when we talk about promotional products rather than being gifts. They have to be, promotional products, because then their value is defined in a different way.
Basically, my friend, you've got to pick your poison. If you want it to be a gift, then you're going to get hit with taxes. If you want it to
Yes.
be a promo, then you've got to deal with the digital passport.
Yeah, and the point is that, again, their politics is not really into really into differentiating it. So that's the hugest problem we have when it comes on, industry and politic wise, because for them, promo is a gift, and that always lays out a discussion plate where I know that also the German Association and we as PSI really try to further loosen the regulations on how officially gifts are taxed on, because it really makes a huge point. That's the reason why in Germany, for example, or in Europe all over, I believe we will never get to that turnover or sales development you have in the US, because there are so many restrictions.
Sure.
That also affect the promo products.
So Viola, when is the date for is it the same as Jason's as far as 2030 for your
It is,
digital
yeah, it is, because basically, even though the UK is basically part of Brexit and not in the EU, however, some of the regulations still affect also the UK. So from as far as I understood, 2027, the passport will be officially mandatory. So basically, companies have now the possibility to really, put their mind on it and try to find a good solution, or however, work out solutions on how they will be ready 1st of January 2027. It's more or less the same with what happened when GDPR came in. Generally, the EU regulations always leave some time to,
Sure.
prepare yourselves and then be able to start the day you have to start. We have the same with the product safety regulation update that just came up last week. Basically, it was mandatory last week, or it started to be mandatory last week. And people had to really work on it before that, which often doesn't happen, to be very honest. So, yeah.
Can you guys think of any supplier, like are suppliers that I'm not going to ask you to name anybody specifically, but are suppliers that do any of them have it now? Like have they just thought it's coming, we're going to deal with it now? For example, in the US, Gemline, some of its products, not its whole line, but some of its products have the ability to do digital tracking. So I'm just curious, like you guys are going to have to face this before we will in the US. If any suppliers have just gone kind of headfirst into the pool and said, we're going to start.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in the UK, I'm not aware of any, and certainly it's not been sort of advertised or promoted. I think with generally a lot of the UK companies, they are on the whole dealing just with UK distributors, and those products are staying within the UK. So, my understanding is that you won't then need those digital passports for those elements. But obviously for anything that's going outside of the UK, you will need that. So I think it's that's why I think it's important to raise it now, because it is coming, and I think it's important for particularly suppliers, but also distributors as well, to be aware of this and actually start looking at this, so they do have a couple of years, as Viola says, to prepare for it, plan for it. Certainly for certain suppliers, it could be brand new working infrastructures and systems being put in place to do this, which isn't going to happen overnight. So although it's 2 years or so away, those 2 years can go pretty quickly if people don't start looking at it and putting some plans in place.
I gotcha. I'm mindful of our time. We have 4 minutes left. We have a question from Sandy. Mergers and acquisitions. Do we predict that mergers and acquisitions globally are going to increase in 2025? I know my prediction. Viola, what do you think?
I would say yes. Yes. I would say yes. In some parts, we already saw that on the German market, and I believe that it's going to be expanded even more in the whole European market. Yeah, definitely.
Jay?
100%. I mean, we're seeing a lot of acquisitions in the UK with large UK companies buying sort of smaller distributors. That I don't have any doubt will continue into 2025. And I certainly believe there could be more international acquisitions happening as well. So I think that's certainly something else that I'm going to be looking at with interesting eyes over the next 12 months.
Here's what I would say. We always have in Q1 a flurry of acquisitions within the US and Canada. I think what's the big trend for 2025 will be global acquisitions. And I can tell from the number of large American companies who say to me, who should I buy in? Pick a country, UK, France, Germany, that they are very acquisitive and looking across the pond, as Jay would say. I don't see that slowing. And in fact, I think that will pick up in 2025.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, again, Michelle, as you were saying, with the amount of your members and US distributors coming to places like PSI and to Merchandise World, it's great, and it obviously opens up those markets and those avenues for those lines of communications with those companies as well. So I totally agree. I think it will be something that will continue into next year.
Before we wrap up, just to remind everybody, Orlando is January 4th to the 6th. PSI is January 7th to the 9th in Dusseldorf. Merchandise World is January 22nd to 23rd in Coventry. I will be at both shows. We have one last question, and it is for you, Jason. John would like to know, I suspect that he's a Brit. Will Jason be holding court at the Irish pub in Dusseldorf?
I get the feeling that might be a British distributor, yeah. I might be in my office.
I'm getting thumbs up, by the way. People are putting thumbs up. Everybody wants to know if Mick Jagger here is going to be holding court at the Irish pub.
I will be in my office in the Irish bar in Dusseldorf from the 6th to the 8th. I will be, yes. I
will be visiting you in your office at the Irish pub.
I can see lots of smiley faces and things coming up. On
Yes. They all know you, Jay. Well, thanks to everybody for listening. If anybody would like Jason and Viola's contact information, of course, I have it. Just email me at mbell@asicentral.com. I cannot wait to see you guys. Happy holidays. I can't wait to see you.
Thank you. Same to you.